If you've ever wondered how trauma resolution actually works, you are not alone. Many people know that they feel anxious, overwhelmed, stuck emotionally, or exhausted, but they have no idea why talking about it doesn't always seem to fix it. And in this video, I'm going to explain trauma resolution in simple everyday language. No jargon or complicated psychology, just practical understanding of what's really happening and how resolving it can happen. So one of the biggest misconceptions about resolving trauma is that it involves endlessly talking about painful memories. But trauma isn't just something that happened in the past, it's also what happened inside your nervous system as a result of those experiences. And that's why two people can go through similar events and be affected very differently. Trauma isn't defined by the event alone. It is defined by how overwhelming it felt and whether your mind and body were able to process it. And how does trauma show up? Well, when something feels threatening, the nervous system automatically moves into survival mode. And that looks like, I'm sure you've heard this, it looks like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And these responses are brilliant in the moment. They are designed to keep us safe. But the problem comes because the nervous system doesn't fully realize the danger has passed. And even years later, it can continue responding as if the threat is still present. And that shows up with our old friends: anxiety, depression, people pleasing, overthinking, emotional numbness, feeling on edge, difficulty trusting people or yourself, sudden emotional outbursts that seem to come from nowhere. And then people think there's something wrong with them, whereas in reality, it's their nervous system still trying to protect them. And this is where people get so frustrated. They understand their childhood, they know where their patterns come from, they can explain everything intellectually, and then they still feel stuck. And that's because insight largely happens in these thinking parts of the brain, and trauma responses live in a deeper emotional and physiological systems. Knowing you're safe and feeling you're safe are not always the same thing. And that's why many trauma therapies focus not only on thoughts, but also on the body's responses. Trauma resolution usually involves helping the nervous system learn something new. Instead of automatically reacting with fear, overwhelm, or shutdown, it begins to experience safety. And this can happen in many different ways. For example, learning emotional regulation skills, developing self-compassion, processing those old memories, changing the limiting beliefs that arose from them, using body-based approaches, and creating new experiences that contradict those old expectations. And then the brain starts gathering the evidence that you're safer than you were, that you have a choice, and that you're no longer trapped in the situations that originally hurt you. Funnily enough, I was a computer programmer before I got into this work, and I think of it as updating old software. So the nervous system has been running an outdated survival program. Resolution helps install a newer version. For one-off traumas, where there are no underlying issues, they can be resolved on one or maybe two sessions. And sometimes another session or two can be used to deal with mopping up anything that arises, such as unhelpful beliefs that have come out of the event, or thoughts, feelings, and behaviours that are no longer relevant. There is a myth that resolving trauma means never feeling anxious, sad, angry, or triggered again, and this is just not realistic. It isn't about becoming emotionless, it is about becoming more resilient. And of course, you'll still have challenging experiences in your life, but they no longer control you in the same way because they're not backed up by all those previous experiences. And so you recover faster, you understand yourself better, and you respond more consciously. And you'll spend less time stuck in survival mode. And if you have worked with me, you'll have a toolbox of things that you can do to help yourself in these moments. One of the most common things my clients say to me after doing trauma work is, I feel lighter. Not because their past has disappeared, but because they're no longer carrying the weight of the emotions attached to it in the same way. The memories existed, but they exist in the past where they belong, and the emotional charge reduces. The nervous system becomes calmer, and they feel much more comfortable in their own skin. So once the tears, the anger, the shame, the grief, the anxiety, and the myriad of emotions that were attached to the trauma have been processed gently, safely, and quickly, someone can say, well, this thing happened to me, and now I'm off to lunch with a friend. And I know that when they can say those two things in such a neutral way, that the job is done. If you're new to trauma resolution, you don't need to feel broken to benefit, and you don't need to have experienced extreme trauma, and you don't need to stay stuck simply because you've felt this way for years. The goal isn't to erase the past. The goal is to help your mind and body realize that the past is no longer happening and it's no longer a threat. And when that happens, real change becomes possible. If this video helped you understand trauma resolution a little better, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.